And now, please welcome Colin Maclaurin.
You know, I just love David as a character in the Old Testament. He was just this mighty man of God, winning battles and all this. He was the minority, the underdog, I understand, destroying the enemies, such a man. And yet, it's puzzled some people that in the Psalms he just has so much hurt at times he expresses. Yes, so much joy and love for God as well, but at times like so much pain. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize this great mighty warrior would be like this. I love in Psalm 109 where he says, I am poor and needy, and my heart is wounded within me. He says this, for help me, God, for your name's sake. Out of the goodness of your love, deliver me, for I am poor and needy, and my heart is wounded within me. You know, at the start of that chapter, he talks about all the people who are giving him a hard time, all his enemies. He's just praying and asking God for help or even to punish his enemies and so on. But he admits his neediness. He admits his wounded heart. He admits how poor he is and how he needs God. You know, I guess the storms we've had the last couple of days in Brisbane, maybe a physical reminder of the state that we all have inside of us at many times. You know, people are worried about leaving the house, and there was lots of floods, and I know some of the people here worried about the causeway and the getting past the flooded causeway there and things like that. Storms beating down. My parents thought I was crazy for leaving the house last night because it's really quite out there. And I see that as a sign as to the way we are inside sometimes. And it's a reminder that we do really need God. I love Paul as well. Paul, as you know, is often seen by Christians as, one of the really, really great early leaders after Jesus. And yet even such an incredible person who wrote like half the New Testament was not perfect, an amazing disciple though he was. In 2 Corinthians 12, he talks about the thorn, and he talks about a weakness. He doesn't explain what it is, but he calls it a thorn in his side, metaphorically speaking. You can just think of like a prick in your side. It's like hurting you, and you want to get rid of it. It's some sort of weakness. And he says 3 times he prayed to God to take it away, but God didn't do it. And God simply said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So this thorn served to keep Paul humble and recognize his weakness and recognize his need for God and to be dependent on God. And God even in this case refused to take it away, saying that this makes my power perfect. This shows you my grace. And I think that when we do have those needy times, all the thorns in our side, that it does remind us that we really need God. We're not self-sufficient. We don't have all the answers. We're not perfectly independent, but we have a real need for God. Not getting into the details of politics recently, but there was a recent execution, as you know, involves some Australians and other citizens around the world, Brazil and other countries, and those people had broken crimes, they'd done bad things, and they were given the death sentence, as you're aware, and that's terrible. A good part of the story is that many of them became committed Christians during that time. Maybe this was their thorn in the side, their real wake-up call, being put on parole, sentenced to death. And these people in their final hours, they hoped for a miracle, they hoped God would deliver them, but they chose to sing songs to God, Amazing Grace, some other Christian song as well, in their final hours as a witness. I was actually really happy to see the newspaper actually quoting this in Australia. These people were known for their kindness and goodness to the other people around them, and that hard time really made them turn to God, I think, and really just ask God for help. So, whether it's the storms outside, just like the storms of life inside, we have times when we feel weak, poor, needy, and I just want to encourage you, take it to God. God's the only one that can meet all those needs. That neediness can remind us of our need for God. And when we do turn to God, not always maybe, but much of the time, God gives us peace, gives us joy, gives us love. He helps us through those times. But Jesus is really the one that was the answer to the great need of humanity. Jesus made the way to bring us back to God. Thank you.
To help you understand God's Word in a whole new way, go to goodnewsunlimited.com. You can sign up there to get your free devotional delivered to you each day. This program has been paid for by the partners and friends of Good News Unlimited. Word spreads fast.